In the latest twist, China now declared the area a nature reserve in a move the Philippine government slams as illegal.
International Tribunal, which essentially debunked China's myth that the entire South China Sea belongs to it.
A Philippine flagship cutter locks its radar on a Chinese spy ship just 70 miles from Manila. Silence on the radio. No response. Then, a Chinese destroyer enters the frame, with a helicopter overhead. It's not just a test, it's a statement. The question isn't what happened next. The question is, how close did this come to sparking something bigger? Stay with me as we break down how one decision at sea carried the weight of a nation's sovereignty. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great! Thank you so much. Now, back to the video. 70 miles from Manila, a ship built for secrets floated on the edge of contested water. It was the Type 815G, a Chinese surveillance vessel that looked like a simple research platform at first glance. Inside its hull, deep arrays of sensors and listening gear reached out like invisible claws. Every surface contact, every radio emission, every faint electronic pulse was being captured and logged. This was not aimless wandering. This was data collection in a place Beijing claims, but Manila lives beside.
Philippines would be best, and the rest of the world would be best served simply to move along, except that China is going to be the steward of Scarborough Shoal.
Its presence so close to the coast raised a single, sharp question: why here, and why now? The silhouette remained silent, but its actions spoke. Calls went across the radio requesting identification. No voice ever returned. The empty static was an answer in itself. Around the ship, the water soon grew crowded as Philippine patrol forces shifted into alert posture.
Tensions between China and the Philippines over the disputed South China Sea are increasing. The Chinese Coast Guard accused a Philippine ship.
The air felt tight, a storm building without clouds. To some watchers it looked like routine patrol activity, but for those who understood maritime chess, this was an opening move played with purpose.
International Tribunal, which essentially debunked China's myth that the entire South China Sea belongs to it.
Sailing directly into this rising tension came the Teresa Magbanua, one of the newest cutters of the Philippine fleet. She carried the scars of past confrontations in the Spratly Islands, and this time her crew showed no hesitation. The ship's radar locked on the intruder, a signal every sailor understands: we see you, and we are not backing down. In that instant, Manila projected more than resolve. It showed that every inch of the surrounding water mattered. That sudden lock painted a vivid picture of strength, but the deeper contest was invisible. Intelligence vessels like the Type 815G often shield their mission beneath the story of civilian research. They fly banners of study and science, but on board they weave sensor webs across large areas, mapping defenses, recording transmissions, and building digital libraries of how a navy speaks and maneuvers. On a battlefield, this knowledge is lethal. It means predicting when a missile battery will wake, or how quickly a patrol will turn. That is what the Philippine cutter was standing against, silent mapping that could shape future wars. But then, the stage shifted. A Chinese Coast Guard cutter made its entry, driving into the exclusion zone with calm inevitability.
Now, the two nations have been at odds over control of the Scarborough Shoal since 2012, when Beijing's forces seized the area.
Here was the second layer of contest. White paint and flashing lights, not gray hull and heavy guns, but the claim was blunt. These were Chinese waters, said its mere presence, though the charts and the treaties drew other borders. Now two ships faced off with two flags, their crews watching each other's decks only a few hundred yards apart. The first duel of authority had begun in real time. Before this standoff could settle, escalation arrived. A Chinese Type 052D destroyer, Guilin, cut into the scene with a long, lean frame bristling with missile cells. Above it, the slow thunder of rotor blades emerged as a naval helicopter dipped close over the horizon. Steel on the water. Steel in the air. The cutter from Manila now stood alone, its outlines dwarfed by the length, height, and arsenal stacked before it. Naval balance had shifted fast, from 1 against 1, to 1 against 3 layers of pressure.
The Philippines, likewise, has the exclusive authority to establish environmental protection areas.
You could almost read the intent in the placement. The spy ship listened, the Coast Guard cutter claimed, the destroyer and helicopter enforced. It was a triangle of intimidation meant to squeeze a smaller opponent back into harbor. Every sailor on the Teresa Magbanua had to see it the same way. They were positioned as the lone figure in David's stance facing Goliath's shadow. It was never just about ships, but about principles carried in steel hulls. The minutes stretched. The Philippine cutter did not veer. It kept station. Its radar locks held. Against the silent weight of surveillance arrays, against painted hulls and missile decks, it simply refused to retreat.
So we cannot have Filipino fishermen or Coast Guard or any other country encroaching on this territory.
By holding its position, Manila turned presence into declaration. The decision was clear. Let the world see, even a single cutter would not fold when pressed inside its own front yard.
Issuing a formal diplomatic protest against this illegitimate and unlawful action by China.
The clash faded without collision, but the meaning lingered. Each radar tone, each unanswered call, each refusal to bow traced Manila's new pattern: endurance rather than avoidance. If sovereignty is measured not in treaties but in choices made at sea, then we have to ask ourselves a harder question. What happens the next time steel meets steel in these contested waters, and the pressure ratchets 1 degree higher?
Tribunal has said China's just going to go ahead and say, this is ours, we're going to do what we want. And I expect eventually it'll be like in no man's area.
This confrontation was not random maneuvering. It was a demonstration that Manila is shifting from avoidance to resistance, from silence to assertion. Holding radar lock against superior firepower meant more than a tactical posture. It was a message carved into open water.
It tells us that China is expanding its reach further and further into the South China Sea.
Each refusal to yield traced a new line in the playbook of defense. Sovereignty would not be negotiated by intimidation, it would be protected by presence. That is the change unfolding now across the South China Sea.
In the latest twist, China now declared the area a nature reserve in a move the Philippine government slams as illegal.
Subscribe and join a community that seeks to understand the realities of modern conflict and the choices that shape tomorrow's battles.